Kamal, you've been out with your notebook today. You've been following Bobby J around, drinking...
And my microphone.
Indeed so, drinking the Jenrick Kool-Aid. He was at the Centre for Policy Studies and he was making a big pitch on the economy.
Hurrah that somebody actually spoke about the economy. So a small tick there for the Jenrick camp.
I know, both he and Kemi Badenoch have been a bit reticent to come forward with their Lawsonian economic principles, so we wait for that. Interestingly, and we discussed this yesterday, didn't we, Jenrick's been out and about a lot, doing speeches, going on broadcast, trying to get his name out there anyway, which might be a reflection of him rather being the underdog in this race because Kemi Badenoch remains the favourite. She has spoken, to be fair, to our colleague Gordon Rayner, our fellow Daily Tea podcaster, and she basically said to him, which I think is probably a fair analysis, that she's the scarier option for Labour, that she would have better luck at roughing up Keir Starmer across the dispatch box than Jenrick. But how did he seem?
He seemed in good spirits. It was a good speech. Just on that, he was asked about the Kemi Badenoch point. I think Kemi Badenoch, she doesn't say it directly, but the point that she makes that Keir Starmer can't accuse me of prejudice obviously raises the point that she's a black woman, and that is going to play with Labour's mind because they find it very difficult to have arguments about equality and prejudice when the person facing them is a woman of colour.
Yes.
And that is the point she's making. Jenrick was asked about that, answered with how many houses they were going to build, so made sure he didn't answer that question. And then he actually got the classic question, which you've always got to be prepared for as a politician, something about sport. And something about a sport that you may not follow. Let's just hear his reaction to the news that Thomas Tuchel, a German, is going to become the manager of England.
On the New England manager, I have to confess, I haven't even seen this news whilst I've been here this morning.
Thomas Tuchel.
Ah, okay. That's a good choice. We'll see.
Slight shades there of David Cameron.
He genuinely, Camilla, didn't know what he was being asked by the wonderful Sun journalist who asked the question. He froze. And then that clip could be played over and over and over again. And why, Camilla, does it become a thing? Because what's the thing about Robert Jenrick? Is he authentic? Does he kind of talk from the heart?
Man
or
of
is
the people.
Is he just building a case?
I know. Yeah. There's shades of
a
Cameron.
bit unfair maybe, but his team should have told him. What was the funny joke on the thick of it? The Zeitgeist tape.
Yes.
You need to be told who's just died on EastEnders, something about sport, and Strictly Come Dancing, and Emmerdale, whatever it might be.
You need
just
to
know
be tuned in.
Yes.
No, I was thinking shades of David Cameron saying that he supported West Ham when actually he supported Aston Villa, or whichever way round that was.
He got confused with which claret and blue he supported.
And as somebody who has reported extensively on economics and business, sum up his economic approach. What's he saying?
He's used that line, which he has used before, but I say it's worth repeating. It's not about a big failed state. It's about a smaller, smarter state. And he spoke about worklessness, which we talked about yesterday. He claimed that if we could remove 500,000 people off worklessness benefits back into work, that would save us £12 billion that he said could be used to give a 2p cut on income tax. He also was aggressive about universities. He said that if you removed the lower 10% of courses which are offered to students in the performance rankings, that would remove 130,000 students from the university sector. That would save money, and that should be used to support apprenticeships. So he had thought through, some people have criticised him for this, he had thought through some policy areas. He didn't say, he did make the point, because people asked him, are you saying there's going to be a 2p cut in income tax? And he said, I'm not writing a manifesto, and we won't need a manifesto for 4 years.
Although he is kind of writing a manifesto.
He is, but what he was doing here was showing how he wanted to govern. It was no coincidence that it was at the Centre for Policy Studies. That was the think tank that was started to support Thatcherism. And he knows that a lot of the party believe that the state is too big, too many people go to university, taxes are too high, And Jenrick claims that his arguments are not just about getting voters from Reform, but are also about getting voters from Labour and even the Liberal Democrats, because he says, with the present trajectory, with the fact that Labour are interventionist, want more state regulation, want higher taxes, will borrow more, that from whichever side of the political debate you are on, it is now time there is a consensus, which is what is the wave that Margaret Thatcher surfed in the 1970s, for smaller state, lower taxes, better delivery. And that is what he's putting before the party.
Was anyone cheeky enough to ask him for his reaction to Wes Streeting's announcement on weight loss jabs? Because as you know, Kamal, the newly slimline, leadership-ready Bobby J has admitted to being on Ozempic. So I'm surprised that wasn't asked, just in response, by the way, to that argument that Badenoch has made about her being more of a threat to Labour. Don't you think that some people might look at Jenrick and then look at Starmer and say, well, it's just one former lawyer against another former lawyer, and maybe this just isn't a dynamic enough contrast to win people back to the Conservatives?
And I think that's why he is going for these more headline-grabbing policy proposals, because that's how he gets cut through. Whereas Kemi Badenoch gets cut through just by being Kemi Badenoch.
Yes.
A 40-something black woman makes all the points she almost needs to make against Keir Starmer, a 60-something ex-lawyer. He also said, just to add to this slight washing line of proposals, 2p cut in tax, smaller, smarter state. He says we should slash the civil service by 100,000 jobs. But actually, he made the point, which was quite cleverly done, that only takes us back to where we were in number of people who worked in the civil service pre the pandemic. So he kept anchoring his answers or his policy proposals in it only takes us back to where we were pre-COVID. We spoke yesterday about COVID and the point that worklessness, for example, can all be connected to those 2.5 years of lockdowns and payments for people for not working and all that we went through the pandemic. His play is, yes, I want to sound radical, but actually all I'm saying to people is I want to take us back to 2019.
Now, on the subject of somebody who has got work, new work, Thomas Tuchel, what do you think? Because there's been a big row now. Before we end, I'm just intrigued. You, as a football fan, you love Liverpool. I'm a Watford supporter, so literally in a slightly different league, but that's not a conversation for today. But Tuchel, big row going on. Oh, we shouldn't have a German England manager. I've got no problem with it at all, have you?
I have absolutely no problem with that. I do have a problem with England, and I must admit, they've let England fans down so often. Not the team, just the whole system, the whole way it's run, the whole England apparatus has been so poor at transferring the brilliance of our football leagues, and of course particularly the Premier League, into a brilliant, adventurous, romantic England team that my generation have almost been beaten up so many times with hope that never becomes reality, that I've slightly given up on England. I watch them, and I'm glad they've got a technician in. They've got someone who knows how to play adventurous football.
Yes.
But they've had those people before. They haven't worked. There is something about the systems we use to manage our national team that creates a great problem and will mean that at the next World Cup, it will be 60 years since the men's team last won the World Cup.
Well, our chief football writer, Sam Wallace, says that the England manager should be English. I'm going to just give a quick counter-narrative to that. Actually, a foreigner might just have less of a need to sort of remain loyal to certain players because they see them as being popular among the public. You know, we had this criticism of Gareth Southgate that he loved all these players so much that he wasn't ruthless enough. And don't we just need a manager who can take the sort of, I don't know, that kind of long-standing, what is it now? How many years of hurt is it, if we quote the Three Lions song?
60 will
It's
be,
60
yes.
years of hurt. He doesn't have 60 years of hurt. He can just look at this in a very clinical way and say to himself, who are the best players? and where shall we play them, which was a problem, a deficiency, arguably, in Southgate's game. He was just a bit too nice to players like Harry Maguire and others. So maybe just a completely fresh pair of eyes on this is a good thing.
I think that the idea that the national side needs to be managed by, the national men's side needs to be managed by an Englishman is slightly ridiculous. I mean, we've had Fabio Capello. We've just had the outpouring of love for Sven-Göran Eriksson, who has just very sadly died. And everyone, all of the media, all of the fans were saying what a fantastic manager he was, what a journey we went on with him. It was one of those, times when, as ever with the England team, we almost made it. It seems odd to think back to that time, which is only a couple of months ago, and now to be saying, oh, no, we should have an England manager. You've got to have the best manager, surely.
And we've had a very successful foreign manager of the England Lionesses, Sarina Wiegman. She's Dutch. She hasn't done too badly, has she?
No, she hasn't. And it makes the argument that I don't understand this idea that your nationality matters when it comes to managing your national team.